everyone. Welcome to the Select Board. Tonight is July 13th, 2022. If I could ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, do we have any amendments to the agenda tonight?
I don't have any. I'll make a motion to, or sorry, Robert, do you?
No.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye, the agenda is approved. Any announcements tonight? Okay. So we do have one sad event that we'd like to recognize. Our constable, many of you have probably known him for a long time, Clark W. Page, has recently passed. He had joined the Ayer Fire Department on March 4th, 1970 and worked for them for 21 years until his retirement on August 7th, 91. He was an elected constable for the town of Ayer for, well over a decade. So we would just like to recognize his passing, thank him for his service to this town, and our condolences, our thoughts with the family. If I could ask for a moment of silence, please. Thank you. If anyone has any questions for anything that's on the agenda, please ask during public input, and then we'll be able to get to your questions later. So does anyone have anything for public input? Anyone? No. Going once, going twice, and sold. All right. So next up, we have the petition for street acceptance, the Crabtree Development LLC, portions of Pingree Hill subdivision.
Hi, my name is Mika Lassel. I'm here on behalf of Crabtree Development. I'm from S. Chamberlain Engineering. And the plan that you have before you is an overview of the proposed development. I have the as-built plans underway here. It'll be just easier to kind of review that. This is the final phase. It's actually labeled phase 4, but it's the last phase of the project. And what you see highlighted in green is the terminus of Hemlock, which is about 500 plus feet. And then we have Woodland Way, which it arcs off to the right and loops around. And that's probably approximately about 1,300 feet long. So we're petitioning the board to begin the process for street acceptance. We are preparing the as-built plans to submit to the DPW for their review, which then they would forward to the planning board for their input. So we're requesting the Board of Selectmen to begin the process for petitioning and putting it on the fall town warrant.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, just for everyone's benefit in terms of the public process. So tonight, the select board's being asked to take a vote for the intent to lay out the street, which would the street acceptance, which would start the process. As the gentleman mentioned, and DPW will get the as-built and so forth. It'll go to the planning board and so forth, and then it'll come back to the select board when we get to the point of the fall town meeting warrant. And if everything should be in order by then, it would go before the fall town meeting in October for consideration of acceptance by the town. That's sort of step one in that process tonight.
And just to add on, as a reminder to everybody, it won't go on the warrant unless all the items have been.
Correct.
Anybody have any questions?
No questions, thank you.
I have nothing. It looks pretty standard at this point. Okay. Do you anticipate any problems being able to get whatever the punch list is done?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right.
resolution.
Yeah. Can we get some guidance on what the motion should be?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, it would be in order for a motion to approve the intent to lay out street acceptance for portions of Pingree Hill subdivision.
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you, Mike.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. Okay,
Okay.
so the process is started.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Town meeting is in October, so be ready.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Chief Gill.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chief. How are you?
Doing good.
Good.
Doing good. Change Wednesday night, different flavor. It's nice. All right.
I know I panicked last night. I realized it was Tuesday. I was like, I'm like, am I supposed to be somewhere? What do you got for us?
All right, so I got two things on the agenda tonight. First, I'm not sure if the board is aware, we had a rather large incident on July 1st. And just wanted to bring it to the board's attention if they hadn't heard about it, and the fact that I really wanted to recognize our public safety agencies in Ayer, the Ayer Fire Department, the Ayer Shirley Regional Communications Center, and the Department of Public Works. For this incident, which I'll get into in a little bit, you know, all of the agencies came together at a critical moment, and kind of on the spur of the moment, to help handle a really serious incident that I was concerned with, and it dealt with a missing elderly gentleman, which we call with complications. So we had some issues that gave us concern that he was in danger being out there on his own. So this was on July 1st, and we had we had this elderly gentleman walk away, and nobody could find him. If you remember July 1st, it was probably the start of one of our very hot days. And this all started at 5 in the morning with our midnight shift, who's just kind of gearing up for the morning traffic. And they got the call and they headed out and to deal with this. They realized that it wasn't going to resolve early, and then the wheels started to move. Deputy Chief gets contacted, kind of evaluates the situation, and then gives me kind of a heads up on where we're at. So where we're at was, get out of bed and kind of head over to the location and see where we're at. The sergeant on duty was Sergeant McDonald, and he kind of was spearheading this whole operation from the get-go. And one of the before long, we had amassed probably 75 individuals, all from different public safety areas. But the big ones that I want to talk about tonight, the first ones are the town of Ayer's public safety people. So it's not uncommon, for us to get involved in these situations at first, or the fire department, or in certain situations, the Department of Public Works. But a lot of times those are handled on their own. This incident, everybody kind of came together, everybody came together, and we formed a massive team to kind of get to the same end. And it was so impressive that some of the senior people that I had at the command post were very impressed with the town of Ayer's cooperation, and the way that the public safety agencies within the town work together, which, believe it or not, some towns, they just don't work together. So when it was all said and done, it was a huge operation, spanned 2 shifts, both for us and the fire department. So we had people coming and going. Nobody was leaving, really, but people were coming and going from shift. Turned out to be a very positive outcome. We ended up locating the individual, and so I just wanted to recognize the members of the teams tonight for that. So from the Ayer Police Department, I wanted to recognize Sergeant John McDonald, Officer Todd Crumpton, Officer George Fichter, Officer Chris Rogers, Officer Timothy Allegio, Communications Manager Chris Herstrom, Communicator Erin McNulty, Communicator Darlene Buelo, and Communicator Janet Providakis. It doesn't stop there. Admin teams from all the agencies stepped in. I had Office Manager Heather Sherry and Records Clerk Rob Mackey also stepping in. They were invaluable to taking care of business, both back at the station, but they were also part of the team that was bringing in water and Gatorades and coffee to out to the scene. So which seems like a small amount, but that was a hot day, and within an hour, all of our people were needing all this stuff on scene. So it was huge. That was a huge thing there. In the communication center, that is probably one of the most hectic calls that they've had in a long time, dealing with all multiple agencies, which we're going to talk about. They're not only dealing with that, we're dealing with phone companies, pinging phones, getting that information out to all the various people on the ground. From the fire department, we had Chief Johnson was out there with me for that. So we had Captain Tim Shea, Captain Dave Greenwood, Lieutenant Frank Fowler, Lieutenant Brendan Hurley, Firefighter Tyler Schwab, Firefighter Drew Broussard, Paramedic Chuck Dillon, and Administrative Assistant Janet Poitras, who was also doing the same thing that our office staff was doing, making sure that the building was taken care of and getting that first wave of hydration back out to us in the fields. And from the Public Works, we had Doug Jasperson, Walter Wood, Bruce Burns, Steve Julius, Tom Bozick, and Business Manager Pam Martin, along with Dan Van Schauwick. And so what we had from them was pretty. It was pretty good, not good. It was great. Back at their station, what they were doing, what Pam and Dan were doing, they were working on maps for us to get out into the field. They were also reviewing any of the camera footages that we had at our locations to see if they could see the gentleman walking past their areas. From the Public Works, the people that came out to the field, they were out there as soon as the shift started. We had a command post at the parking lot up at the hospital, and the command post just kept growing. So we had to kind of quarantine that area. They were up with barricades and moving, making sure that we had this area. But it didn't stop there. There was a point where they might have had to gone back out into the field and to start doing their own work out there. But they took it upon themselves to go and just take pictures of the person, just in case while they were out doing their job, that if they saw this elderly gentleman walking around, that they would have that photograph with them. But before they did, some of them did have to leave. They also took part in when you get into a search and you start getting into a concentric circle search. You start at the center. So they were part of the team that went into the buildings to start at the ground zero and just kind of work their way out. So that freed up the people still in the field to kind of do their thing. So it was quite an amazing feat from our public safety agencies in here, and I thought that the select board should be made aware of all the efforts that were made by all our public safety agencies in town here. So the other thing that I wanted to bring to the attention was our mutual aid partners. If we can recall, a couple years ago, we entered into an agreement with the Northeastern Massachusetts Law Enforcement Council, which is a consortium of police agencies that are in this area, the northeast part of Massachusetts, and they brought invaluable resources. They were, in an estimation, they brought probably about 40 to 50 people at our disposal here. Within an hour, we started to amass them here. And that ranged from canine personnel. We had drones, we had ATVs, and just personnel, really, specially trained in doing search and rescue operations that we were in. So that was a relief to see all these bodies. They also brought the command post that we were using. They brought in a trailer just specifically for making sure that the radio communications were constant within all the agents, because we had so many different people here. We don't have the same radios. So they, as teams went out, they were being issued radios. I know when I was going out to one area, I get issued a radio. When I come back, I just turn it back in. And then they also brought the command post where A, offered some shade, and B, it had a big, giant screen where we could look at maps, and we were looking at the live ping data that was coming back from a phone that we believed was going to be helpful to look at. We also used a mutual aid partner that we're very used to using is the Massachusetts State Police. In conjunction with the NEMLEC, they were instrumental in bringing in a helicopter. I don't know if anybody, early in the morning, it's unusual to have a helicopter hovering around at 100 feet in air. So I'm sure if you were around, you noticed it. But they were getting all the data that we were getting on the ground, and they were just checking all the areas around. So they were very instrumental in that. The Devon State Police Barracks, Lieutenant Bagley was the one who responded and was kind of in charge of the Massachusetts State Police component that was out there. And from NEMLEC, we also have a chief that comes out that's in charge of their group, and that was Chief Scott Nix from Sudbury. But I also don't want to forget about our local partners that are right around us. Chief Matthew Pinard, Chief Mike Luth, and Chief Steele McGurdy. Chief Pinard's from Littleton PD, Chief Luth is from Groton PD, and Chief McGurdy is from Groton Fire. They responded, and they were a huge asset to me. In just, any ideas brought to the table are huge, and just somebody to lean on. So that, for that, having them out there is a huge asset, and and they're people that are familiar with the area and familiar with the terrain. So there was a lot going on that day, and it wasn't because of any one person. It was just a huge team that came together and got the job done. So I wanted to make sure that I publicly thanked and recognized everybody that was involved. That's what I want to bring to you.
Wow. What time was the person found?
The person was found right around 11 a.m. So within
good 6 hours, yeah.
Within 6 hours, we were able to bring this, to a resolve. It's the terrain he was in was that we were confident that he was in was up in the upper Flanagan Pond area, anywhere from Washington Street to that area. So, if you know that area, there's a lot of water, rough terrain, rocks, cliffs, everything. So, we were under the gun to try and get him located. And then with the heat that was just building, we were very concerned that exposure wasn't going to be a problem. But it all worked out, and yeah, good stuff.
Well, I just want to say thank you to all of you too. That was remarkable, and it's heartwarming to know that if something happens, everyone just jumps and gets into place. So, you guys want to add anything?
Yeah, I would just say again, thank you. But I think it also speaks to the caliber, the character of your staffs, and the leadership of those three agencies that you guys really pulled something tremendous together.
Thank you.
As a member of this town, I appreciate that.
Sean took what I was going to say, but along the same lines, just the fact that our organization overall was able to work together and also drawing resources for such a definitive conclusion that was positive. So,
Yeah, and the town should be very comfortable knowing that we have all these resources, both internally here in Ayer, but also at our immediate disposal. So I think for everybody to have knowledge of that is, I think, good to know that we have these resources to do that.
It is heartwarming to know that people will come together in an emergency like that.
Absolutely.
So-
Absolutely.
So, thank you to everyone that was involved. We're proud of all of you.
Excellent. All right, moving on to the second topic that I have, not as exciting, so to speak. Movie exciting anyway, but it's exciting for us. As you know, we started on our quest to become accredited in August 2019, and in September of last year, we achieved kind of the halfway mark of certification. But we didn't stop there. We just even before we were officially awarded that, we were working to our end goal, which was accreditation. So we kept our nose to the stone and kept working on this goal. So we got great news in June 21st, that we were invited to the commission meeting where they were going to vote to award us accreditation, and we were successful. So we were awarded accreditation. So we're now an accredited agency, which isn't just a plaque. It isn't just a cert that we all get. But what it is the town now has a police agency that meets and exceeds national best practices and standards. That we're part of a select group in Massachusetts. There's only about 1/3 of the police agencies in Massachusetts that are fully accredited, and we're in that distinguished group now. So it's a testament to the men and women that we have in the Ayer Police Department and the Ayer Shirley Regional Communication Center, that we strive to have these standards that we meet every day. And it's a huge accomplishment. It took us almost 3 years to get there. And so we have this accreditation certification for 3 years. We get reaccredited in another 3. So that means in the 3 years in between now and then, we've got to go into what's called maintenance, which is just as complex as attaining the initial accreditation. The accreditation manager now, which is what I was when I was the deputy chief, and now Deputy Chief Bigelow is learning the ropes there, it's a very difficult job to maintain it. You got to make sure that all these things that we did to kind of prove that we did it this one time or these couple times, that we're constantly doing that. And that's the importance of accreditation, that the police agency is consistently doing the things that is a national best practice or standard. So that's where we're at. So we have a difficult 3 years, and the 3 years after that we have another difficult 3 years that we just got to keep maintaining that. But that's the importance of it, so that we have an agency that meets these standards. So that's what accreditation is. We're super excited to have it. The people in town should be excited that we have it, because they have a police department that they can trust.
Could you just give a couple of examples of what some of the best practices things are that Ayer Police practice that other agencies may not, that aren't? Maybe you had to explain this before. But.
Yeah. So there's for accreditation, there's 320 standards, and in those standards, there's probably 10 or 20 things that you've got to meet. So one of those may be the fact that the communication center does emergency medical dispatching, which isn't necessarily a standard in a 911 center itself. They may farm it out to somewhere else. The record keeping of training is huge, and the record keeping of anything that we do. In the training is really a key component of this, is to document that the officers have been trained to do this, and then the follow-up is that the officers are doing whatever they've been trained to do. And that's where it comes in. What we found when we were going into this process in 2019, that we were more or less doing a lot of it. We just couldn't prove it on paper that we were doing it. So we had to kind of shift gears and get into this documentation part of it. But it's simple things in a cruiser, like do you do a maintenance program in your cruiser? Do you certify your radars pursuant to the standard of do you get them recalibrated every year? That's something that agencies may or may not do. So it's really just it's making sure that that these the certification standards make basically everything that you should be doing. the accreditation standard is kind of stepping it up a notch and doing the extra things to, you know, to bring you to that next level. So there are so many different things like training. Back to the police reform, there was a lot of things that we, when police reform started to evolve in Massachusetts, that we had kind of picked up and already started doing. When they said, all right, agencies, you got to start doing this, this, and this, you know, there was something that we were all ready to approve. So we were pretty excited about that. You know, we were on the forefront of that. But all those little things, anytime you want to come down, if you know, we'll show you some of the multitudes of files that we have and documents. You know, it's sadly
Yes, so exciting.
yeah. So the good news is that there's right now it's all paper, and that's how they operate. They're transitioning to an electric format where we should be able to prove a lot of our stuff with electronic documents. So we can stop going through reams of paper and things like that. So, but it's a cumbersome process. But we're glad it's, you know, where we're at. So now we're just in maintenance, and now the deputy gets to kind of keep it going.
Well,
She's thrilled.
congratulations.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it. So that's it. We're accredited.
Great. Congratulations.
Congrats.
Congratulations, wow. Everything going on down there is terrific.
Yeah,
So,
and they have both of their certifications.
I know, the whole room's starting to be, you know, all their accreditations and stuff, so.
Yeah.
So if there's any other questions about accreditation,
No? Thank you.
Thanks.
perfect.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Alrighty. Katie Petrosi, did I say that right? Okay, Director of Air Council Aging, come on down.
So Madam Chair, through you to ask Dr. Petrossi, Dennis Curran from the COA, Alan Minoyan and Dan Van Schauwick, if they could come up for this first piece on the presentation.
Absolutely.
And Cindy, you'll be the navigator.
I will do that. Just say next slide.
Okay. Madam Chair, members of the board, we wanted to come to you this evening to give you an update on the senior center site selection process, and to also discuss with you next steps as we move forward on this important project. And we look for having more of a dialogue this evening, and you have this presentation in your packet, which we'll go through very briefly just to frame where we're at. You also have a letter from the Council on Aging in support of the project, and we'd like to talk about next steps. So I'll just go through the presentation very briefly. Next, Cindy. So our goals for tonight is just a brief recap of what's been done so far, because this has been an ongoing process, where we are now in the process, and then talking about our next steps moving forward. I want to recognize the Site Selection Working Group, Dr. Katie Petrossi, the COA Senior Center Director, Mr. Dennis Curran, member of the Council on Aging and resident of Ayer, Ms. Janine Nichapur, member of the COA and resident, Mr. Ken Diskin, Planning Board member and resident, Dan Van Schauwick, our DPW Director, Alan Minoyan, our Director of Community and Economic Development, David Eisen and Julia Patton of Abacus Architects and Planners, and they have been our consultants working with us from the beginning of the process, Carly Antonellis, Assistant Town Manager, and myself. Next. So the current senior center, and some of you may have seen this before, Cindy, next, yep. The challenges we have, just looking briefly, and I know the board has the report and has looked at this, and we've covered a lot of this, but so in the interest of time, some of the exterior challenges, it's very difficult to find that the location is sort of tucked back on the backside of the Housing Authority on Pond Street. There's very limited parking, which is a challenge, and this is sort of the entrance. It's sort of an unwelcoming entrance, if you will. The people that work there make it very welcoming, but it's just that's sort of the entrance. So there's some exterior challenges there, really, with the parking and the overall location. Next. Okay. in the interior, as you can see, the offices do not provide the space or privacy that staff needs for planning and collaboration on various programs and projects. Private areas for discussing finances, health, nutrition, mental health issues are not available, and we feel that could also be discouraging for requests for support and a real challenge there. There's lack of office space for staff without sacrificing program space. And I know many of you have been there. We've really have outgrown that space. Next. Other things inside, lack of a commercial kitchen, and as the board will recall, and I know Selectman Hood is the chair of the Capital Planning Committee, the director and the COA, we tried to address in the interim period a commercial kitchen project through the capital process, and it ended up being cost prohibitive for what we were looking to do, but the lack of the commercial kitchen has really been an inherent obstacle to a lot of the food-based and nutrition-based programs. Again, the dining space, the living room area is limited. On number 4, the bathrooms do not meet the needs of all seniors or some of the ADA requirements. The ADA is aware of that. We're sort of operating in a waiver sense there, but we need to resolve those. The limited size doesn't allow a diverse range of space and programs. And the low ceilings, limited windows do not provide the kind of warm and welcoming environment. And there's really no large event spaces. So as the board will recall, back in September of 2019, as part of the feasibility process in working with Abacus Architects and Planning, was looking at, we did a community forum up at the high school looking at needs, and we really did hear, these are some pictures from one of the exercises, did really get a lot of input from seniors on needs for the future. Next. And from that, results of that, as you can see on the left, activities, companionship, and physical activities are sort of the big top 3. And then you have the meals, information and counseling, and then sort of, I think that's all undefined as that category. But for activities, companionship, and physical activities, obviously the space is a real inherent barrier from further growing that program. Next. And this is just a quick slide to again show, going from the top down, the various. This was a result of those surveys. You can see at the top sort of dance and fitness, community living, flexible spaces, informal spaces with sort of the top 4, and then it goes down the various categories. Next. So a new center for active living, which was sort of a phrase that came up through this process, and as we move forward in looking towards the future. Next slide. The board will recall, so this is an image of a proposed active living center that was designed as part of the feasibility study, and this is on the West Main Street location, which we'll talk about more in a minute, and some folks may remember seeing this from town meeting and in the report. As you can see, this plan really reflected all of that, the input, and really looked towards the 21st century in terms of spatial needs, programmatic needs, and a state-of-the-art senior center for the future. And we'll come back to the West Main Street site in a moment. And if you remember, in the feasibility report, looked at some other locations. At the time, this was the top location from that report. Next. So the current challenge is finding a suitable location. I will say that we have, the COA board is very active and engaged. We have an excellent director. We have a program that has reached its capacity in the space. We have all of the pieces. We even have the plan and the program relatively designed, working with Abacus. Our biggest challenge is a location to put it on, and that's what we want to talk with you this evening. So, next. So the challenges, we have some unique challenges in Ayer regarding land and building sites. The town unfortunately has no viable municipal land or municipal buildings for the purchase of the senior center. In many communities, and this is not always ideal, but there may be a former municipal building or municipal land that would be a natural, progression for a project of this. We don't have that here in Ayer. At only 9.5 square miles, land is at a premium in Ayer in terms of available and viable sites. So the other challenge is, even if there is a piece of land, it may be privately held. Is it available? Or, as we'll talk just briefly about on the West Main Street site, as we saw, environmental or other issues. Most potential sites have either environmental, conservation, or logistical obstacles. Potential sites that are privately owned are not necessarily for sale, as I mentioned. Devon sites have been explored with mass development, and there's some further due diligence to be performed there. Again, there's a debate about it being in Devon's versus Ayer, and we can talk about that, but in our efforts, we wanted to sort of broaden and look at everything on the table. And as I mentioned, we have the project and the program, but nowhere right now to build it. And we're looking to solve that problem with your help shortly. Next. So actions taken regarding the site selection. So as the board will recall, at the fall town meeting in October of 2020, town meeting was presented with the West Main Street site, including an article to authorize the funding for the environmental assessment and the acquisition. And town meeting at that time voted to table the article as a result of incomplete information, specifically on the environmental conditions of the site, remediation concerns, and there were some cost concerns also brought up on the project. So if you recall, at that point, a town meeting, they didn't vote it down, they tabled it, come back, looking at more information. So at that time, shortly after, I convened the site selection working group, what we mentioned in the beginning, with Abacus Architects and Planning, our consultant, to further study the West Main Street site and identify other potential viable sites for consideration. And that's what we've been working in earnest on over the last year, meeting often about monthly with other work, to try to find that site. Next. So the West Main Street site, through the DPW director, an environmental LSP was contracted to conduct a Phase 1 21E analysis of the site. And if you recall, this is a site that was a former dry cleaner location. And we only did the Phase 1 21E, and from that, the site would require additional environmental analysis. There are concerns regarding the scope and cost of that. There's also concerns regarding the public perception of the site, which I think the board will recall came up at the town meeting. In other words, concerns about that site. So we sort of have put that, I'll say, on hold at this point with those significant concerns. As I mentioned, the working group has looked at various potential land and building sites on Devon's. Concerns have been the location in terms of a viable site adjacent to Ayer. The director and others have brought up that it would really need to be contiguous to Ayer if it were to be on Devon's. Other concerns have been legal and procedural matters involved in the acquisition of a Devon site. And there's currently been a lack of current staff at Mass Development in Devon, specifically in real estate and legal, to work with us on this. And Devon's, as this board knows, is easier said than done, and that. So, but we continue to look at Devon's. We issued a townwide property RFP that the board's aware of. The working group, we issued that. The RFP we casted a wide net across Ayer and in Devon's. It generated one response for a building on Devon's, and after the committee met and looked at it, it was determined not to be adequate for these needs. The RFP, could it be potentially reissued or tailored or targeted? That's something that we're considering as well. Next. The Federated Church property, in May of 2022, Alan, the Ayer Office of Economic Development, was approached by the owners of the Federated Church on Washington Street about a potential partnership regarding the further development of that site. An initial due diligence is currently underway. I know members did a tour yesterday, and there was a previous tour. There is an interesting potential opportunity there. We're also looking at revisiting the site off of Park Street in the study report. This site is the land across from Tiny's, and it was initially looked at. The concern with the two biggest concerns were the traffic and some of the conservation potential issues. We're in the process of informally looking at the conservation issues with conservation staff. And there may be a way to do a separate access to the property that would avoid that major concern. So that is back on the table. Also, perhaps a potential partnership with the Parks Department regarding the park land, which is under the Parks Commission at Peroni Park in the back as well. Next. Many sites that have been considered, again, size, location, availability, possible constraints, and this is just a thumbnail sketch of some of them. The current location being too small. The Fitchburg Road site, that was the drawing a blank. It's sold since the process. The David E. Ross building, yeah. Park Street, that there's the traffic concerns, but there may be an opportunity to resolve those. On Brook Street, there was a parcel that's too small. So as you can see, as we go through these 115 Washington Street, which is currently the Page Hilltop Elementary School, and there are efforts to, look at a new elementary school, and could there be a possibility to use that space? The biggest challenge is that wouldn't be available for multiple years, assuming that as that project moves forward. And then the West Main Street site, which had been identified as the environmental concerns, have really raised great concern there. Next. This is just a thumbnail sketch provided from Abacus of the various different sites that we've looked at, just to show that we have looked at all types of sites, formally, informally. We discuss sites all the time when we meet. Next. So next steps, where do we go from here? And as I mentioned, we need to identify a viable site. And we continue, as mentioned, to take the steps to find that site. It may require some additional funds for that due diligence. If you recall, town meeting authorized $130,000 for the initial work, and that has been done. And we may need to, as we did not anticipate, that the challenge of the site would be where we're at. We need to, once that site is identified, acquire it, which would require, in most cases, an act of town meeting. The site is identified, available, acquisition would require town meeting, as well as a series of due diligence steps. And the timeline and timing is key there. And one of the things we'd like the board to just consider, and we're not there yet, obviously there's a town meeting every October and every April, but there's also the ability for a special town meeting. What I'm getting at is that when we get to that point, and we're not there just yet, the timeline would like you to potentially consider, given the importance of this project. And then the fund, procure, and build the project. Once the site is acquired by the town, funding for the project needs to be secured, and the project would have to be obviously procured and constructed. Next. So, as Katie often says, this will be your center, everybody's center. We need your continued support and ideas. So we wanted to give you that overview and that update. And through the chair, I know folks would like to obviously address the board as well. And we're open to any, the biggest challenge is to find the site. And so where we sit right now, the three that is sort of in play is this Federated Church opportunity, we'll call it. The Park Street site is being re-looked at. We've looked at some Devon sites, the West Main Street site. There's the environmental issues, as I've mentioned. We've issued the RFP. So this is don't wanna call it our challenge, it's our opportunity, but I think it's imperative that, we're able to move this project forward. Thank you.
A lot of work being put into this. Greatly appreciated. I'm glad you mentioned that a special town meeting, because while you were talking, I was thinking, just come to us and we'd call it a special town meeting. Because this is very important, and I know there's a lot of people out there that are very interested in this and moving this forward. If you guys can find anything. So, what would you like to add? I mean,
I feel like that was an excellent summary. Just that the need is here. It's imminent. There's, America is aging, and all of the statistics say nationwide we will be at 24% of our population will be over age 60 by 2040. The town of Ayer is already there. So we are ahead of that curve. Doesn't mean we'll be out of it faster. We're just have a population that the need is now.
right.
It's not a forward thing, it's a now. And so we really do need to get a facility and a site in place that we can start offering the kinds of programs and services that our seniors need now.
Yeah, and for those who don't realize, just even the parking up where you're at now, I mean, the American Legion Post used to have their meetings there, and if you had 5 cars parked there, it was full. I mean, it was awful. And then even just the short space trying to back in and out was horrendous and everything. And the low ceiling, right? Very low ceiling. I always felt like I was going to duck. So this is imperative. And I can tell you right now, you have my support. I'm sure you have their support. If you find something, bring it, and we'll get it to the town as quickly as possible. You know, is there anything we can talk about as far as putting together funding now, or are you ready?
Well, the budget's already been done for the next fiscal year, so if we don't budget for it, it's not really something we can't do. We're not going to reserve fund transfer for it.
Right.
But possibly looking at maybe for the next budget cycle, do we want to include additional funding for, even if you don't have the physical space for the senior center itself, is looking at other venues that you could run some programs and provide funding around that. So there would be off-site locations to at least start building the program itself while we try to find the physical building and a permanent home for the senior center.
Madam Chair, one of the things too, just to mention, one of the challenges when we talk about a site, ideally, the site needs to be about 1.5 acres as a minimum. So just to sort of frame it, or the building or so
Right.
forth. Other thoughts? One of the things I also just to think about, we're not there yet, when I mentioned earlier about additional funding, so there was originally 30,000 approved for the feasibility,
Mhm.
and a lot of that was for the report, and a lot of work that has been done. Even beyond that, Abacus has been a great partner, and we're sort of at the end there. And I'm not, tonight with a specific request, but there may be some need for some additional funding for some of this final sort of site work and so forth. And of course, the budget wasn't anticipated at the time, though the budget is set. Perhaps that we can look at some funding alternatives. We're not there yet, but I'm just saying I can see that we're going to need to do a little bit more potential due diligence on that.
Can I ask, is there a mechanism available that would allow an increased expenditure of funds between now and the next budget cycle? I mean, is there a way to, if we need more consultant money or?
Special town meeting is all I can think of, because town meeting has to authorize all the funding that comes out of the general fund. So anything that we would put forth would have to be part of a special town meeting. So we could put something together for the fall, or if we need something before then. And we've done, spent articles at the fall town meeting for various other items. So it's something that, the fall would be a feasible time frame. If it's an emergency for funds before then, we could call a special town meeting if need be.
Mhm. Because we kind of ran into this problem too a few years ago. What was it, chapter 61 properties?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and we ran into that problem as to trying to move fast, and I don't think that people understand. I mean, you know, you see a house and you want it, you go put down the money on it, and we're like, well, now we have to go and basically ask mom and dad if we can go do it, you know. And I think sometimes people kind of forget that little part as to how that works and everything. So, but you know, I think that we're committed to
Absolutely.
moving as fast as we possibly can to make sure that it at least gets to the next step for approval. So you have our support in that.
No, go ahead, Dennis.
Can I ask, is there a way to, you know, as Robert pointed out, the Federated Church building is one of the sites currently under consideration. Is there a way to resolve or to bring clarity to the potential church-state conflict issues which municipal budget and church-owned property will present, and gain some clarity on where the boundaries are and whether it's a viable, so you know, that's a viable site, or do those concerns kind of take it out of them? Or how does that process unfold?
That's a very good question.
So, Madam Chair, yeah, I was going to say on that, and it's an excellent point on that site specifically, is the issue of the separation of church state. We would have, they're doing some preliminary work as we speak, but have town council look at the legal issues and so forth, and come up with a framework as to what we can do or can't do. And I know there's room within the town council budget for that type of thing, so we're covered, you know, there. So that's definitely on the Federated Church site. One of the things we want to iron out is that piece, to make sure that, you know, what can we do, can't do, and make sure that's a green light there as well.
I'll just make one comment through you, Madam Chair, just clarification. When everyone's saying the Federated Church building, you're not proposing to put this in the historic church building.
Right.
We're talking about that parcel, the land site, just 0.9 acres, almost an entire acre. So we're not talking about making the historic church building a senior center. We would be using the site, the slope, and they are right now two separate legal parcels. The church is on its own part, and the rest of the properties. So just to clarify, it's the site, the parcel we're looking at.
Okay.
Not
Thanks
the
for clarifying
historic
that.
church building.
Yeah, I
Yes.
was kind of wondering.
Yes.
Madam Chair, by any chance, do any of the members of the select board know of anybody that would have a land site? That's the great question. And use this opportunity as a public meeting as sort of an all points bulletin again. We're all ears and eyes, as they say, as the site. This is still going to call it an opportunity, staying positive, but the challenge is the site. Once we have
Any
the
of
site.
the chapter 61 property coming available anytime soon that maybe we have an opportunity to pounce on?
No, that I'm aware of.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
take a peek just in case. Something's gotta be due. But yeah, you're right. If anybody knows of any property, give us a call.
So in terms of next steps, the group is going to continue to meet. We've been meeting generally monthly, and we've talked, and we'll be looking to accelerate those meetings beyond monthly. We'll obviously have some due diligence on the Federated Church site, we'll call it. And if the board is interested, in the interest of time, maybe we have some more info on that. We're going to relook at that Park Street site as well. I think the idea is that we may need some more initial funding for due diligence purposes.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate your consideration and willingness to call if needed, and we're not a special town meeting for this, purpose. And if you have any other ideas or suggestions, please let us know.
But I want to thank you again. I don't think people understand how important it is to have like these working committees and whatnot to do all the legwork before they've come before this committee or board or any other board. So it's greatly appreciated everything you guys are doing. So and I feel confident you guys will find something.
And for some of the Peroni Park site in 106 Park Street, I would urge other department heads to kind of look at this project with an open mind, that there may be some mutual benefits to working cooperatively with the building of the senior center.
Absolutely.
Either around conservation restrictions or wetland protections, as well as the facility being available for more than one purpose. So I would kind of urge the other department heads to think creatively about what they may be able to do in this regard.
I agree. Don't look just straight ahead. You got to look at all sides and everything. Yeah.
When you talk about like the Peroni Park, is that more like for expanding on the building that's already there for the senior center, or would this be a completely separate facility?
Completely separate, yeah.
Just curious,
Yeah, the space that we were starting to explore would be down where the existing Parks and Rec building is.
Okay.
And it would seem that the center is now located in the Housing Authority building, which limits the ability of the senior center and the town to exert control over what can and can't be done, what uses can be. And it just gets real complicated when trying to do anything. So to the extent that the senior center, or more broadly the town, can have functional control over what occurs and how much is spent and where it's put, I think the town and its citizens are in a better position.
I agree. Good point. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then, unless there's nothing else, we have an anonymous donation.
Yes, I'd like to ask the select board to accept a donation, anonymous donation in the amount of $1,500 to the senior center. My understanding from the donor is that it will be an annual donation.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Very nice.
And is it just used unrestricted?
Unrestricted.
Nice.
Whatever we see fit.
Yeah.
I certainly have no
Absolutely.
problems. I think that's wonderful. Thank you to whoever is doing that. So,
Okay. Any other questions?
No other
Alright.
questions.
I'll make a motion for the Ayer Select Board to accept the anonymous donation to the Ayer Council on Aging / Senior Center in the amount of $1,500 to be placed in the Council on Aging donation account.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent news. So, well, thank you again.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Dan, don't go too far.
I don't want.
Okay. All right, good evening again.
Hello, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
Good.
All right, so first on DPW agenda, I actually have good news this time. Agreement for the wastewater treatment and disposal services with Mass Development.
I'm sorry, did you start getting softer when you were speaking? You need to get a little louder when you're speaking.
So between last meeting and this meeting, we have received the contract back from Devon's. We received it late yesterday.
Okay.
So we're currently, town council and myself are reviewing it. And I think we should just spend a little more time making sure we get it all right. And then come back to the August meeting for the board to do a sign off on a final agreement.
Sounds
So
excellent.
we're making headway and it looks good. So for tonight, for the Devon's agreement, it would just be another amendment. And this time I put it through September 9th, which is in the event for some reason the August meeting doesn't work out, it fits our September meeting.
Okay.
So that would be the
the request to execute the amendment number 5 for the
Okay.
wastewater treatment and disposal services.
You said the
Question?
date was September 9th?
You have questions? Oh.
Yeah. Correct.
Oh, no, I was asking you.
No, so this is your standard monthly agreement we've been doing, just the dates and numbers
Yeah,
has
just
changed?
changing, yeah.
Okay. All right, any questions?
No questions.
I make a motion that the Air Select Board approve amendment number 5 to the agreement for wastewater treatment and disposal services between Massachusetts Development Finance Agency and the town of Ayer, Massachusetts. The extension will go until September 9th, 2022.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the chair says aye. Congratulations.
All right, great.
All right.
Yeah. All right, item 2, an update on the drought status. I got a short presentation. Get that going. Okay. So if you've been living in a bubble, you wouldn't know it hasn't been raining much lately. So the state is in a drought, and the town of Ayer is not exempt from that. So I'm going to provide an update on where we're at with the drought. You want to go to the next one? A little background in Massachusetts for drought management. Massachusetts has a drought management plan. It was the latest version was completed September 2019, and there's several state agencies involved with monitoring and managing the drought conditions and response actions in accordance with the drought management plan. There's 5 levels of drought in the plan. There's normal conditions, which are 0, and goes all the way down to level 4, emergency drought. Next slide. So the current status as of yesterday, well, I guess they met on Monday, that's why I was confused, 7-11. But the letter was issued yesterday. We're in a level 2 significant drought. Most of the state is, including the town of Ayer. So you have your level 0 normal, level 1 mild, and level 2 significant drought. And that's where we're at. You want to go to the next slide. Just a look at some of the precipitation values. So we partner with Littleton Electric Light and Water, and they have a weather station over there, and they send us their data every month. And as you can see, since February, we have been below average. If you look at the trend line there, that's the 30-year average trend line. And we've been, especially the last May and June, significantly below. Next slide. So in the drought management plan, there is guidance for the different levels of drought. And as you can see, for a level 2 significant drought, the state guidance is to limit outdoor watering to handheld hoses or watering cans to be used only after 5 and before 9. However, if you want to go to the next slide, the drought in our public water supply. So the town, for its 2 water supplies, each one has a Water Management Act permit, which regulates how much water we can uptake from the ground. And also, if there is a drought condition, there's certain regulations that can be put on us. So currently, we have our current calendar-based water ban, which is the odd, even 5 p.m. to 9 a.m. restrictions. Drought conditions are actually taken into account into this calendar-based ban. Unless we have something significantly going on in our plant, we kind of will try to stick with this ban. Or, in the last bullet there, if Mass DEP declares a state of water supply emergency, that would trigger a non-essential outdoor water use ban. So currently at level 2, significant drought, we can keep going with the current restrictions we're doing. If we go to a level 3 critical drought, that would likely cause Mass DEP to clamp down on non-essential outdoor water use. So if you want to go to the next slide, I kind of started getting into it. So the DPW, we recommend the following. So we'll maintain the current water use restrictions, continue to monitor the drought status, distribute a public notice regarding the current drought conditions, and re-emphasize our current restrictions, provide educational info on the drought impacts to our water supply and potentially to public safety. I'd like to encourage citizens to curb water use voluntarily. We already do that, but I'll reinforce that. And also provide tips for conserving water in the household. And I'd also like to consider doing a voluntary suspension of town-owned non-essential outdoor watering. You know, if we're asking the public to voluntarily curb water, I think we should lead by example. And at this time, we've currently started suspending issuances of variances for new lawns, et cetera. It's not the time of year to be doing it, especially in a drought. And I think that is that the last slide. Oh, that's the update. So, any questions or?
Nope, so we're just asking everybody to conserve water, be smart about the water usage, and if you do happen to water outside, keep an eye on how much you're watering.
Yeah.
Don't flood the road.
Right.
When it's starting to water the road, turn off the hose.
Right, and we are out doing enforcement and things like that, so making sure we're not using excess water that we shouldn't be.
Plus, just to, if we use too much water, that could affect the fire department if they were going to go use a fire hydrant, couldn't it?
Correct. If our water tank levels were to get that low.
Right. So
Yeah.
I'm just.
Dave wouldn't let that happen.
Right. But no, I'm just
I alert
I'm
you
just
when there's a
pointing
problem.
out that this is how things snowball. So,
Right.
And we don't want that.
And you want to be ahead of it, yeah.
Right. So okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Next update. Here we go. So I wanted to give an update on a project we did with National Grid. Converting the town's vehicle fleet to electric is what I titled it. So yeah, that one. So National Grid had a program free to municipalities and private fleets for a fleet advisory program to basically take a look at your current vehicle fleet and give you recommendations to move it toward electric. So if you want to go to the next slide, we'll get into it. So National Grid had the Fleet Advisory Services Program. It provides fleet electrification recommendations and guidance. Third-party consultant ICF worked for National Grid, and we worked directly with them, and they provided the analysis and developed the report for us to have. And there was no cost to the town. It was paid by National Grid. And the end result was a custom report for Ayer to cost effectively convert our fleet of vehicles to electric. And the reports can be updated twice a year through August 2024. So as we're going through August 2024, no charge, we can talk to ICF and have the fleet report updated. So DPW, police, fire, and parks participated. So the first step is we had an intake call with ICF and we provided existing data. So there was a Zoom call with the various departments in ICF. We provided them key data on the fleet, on our fleet vehicles. Some of the key items are the make and model, the fuel type, the mileage per year. Kind of the way the vehicle is used is very important. You know, if it's a police vehicle, it's getting used daily. It could be used in emergencies. So it's something that's going to have to constantly be charged or have fast charging capability near it. So that gets taken into account in the report. Next. So the existing fleet of those 4 departments, there's 54 total vehicles, and they're predominantly gasoline, 30 gasoline, 24 diesel. And you can see here, most are SUV, probably mostly police patrol. But there is quite a few pickups, and so these are taken into account in the report. Next. So we gave all the data to ICF. They developed the report, and the key elements include recommendations for vehicle replacements, so that they take into account the age of the vehicle and when it's going to be coming up for replacement, what we could potentially use for replacement for that vehicle, what type of electric vehicle is available, and cost. And the cost is right on it. So they looked through 2035 for vehicle replacements in the report. And they also looked at location and type of charging stations that we would need in the various locations in town. You have fire, police, DPW, and parks. And they identified the cost savings and potential CO2 reductions by converting to electric. So this table is a summary of the 14-year electrification recommendations. And so if you look at the column on the very right, I guess we can start there. That's recommended electric vehicle, the charging stations. So there's L2, which means level 2, and DCFC, that's DC fast charging. I don't know how familiar everyone is, but the level 2 chargers, they can take several hours to charge a vehicle. But the DC fast charger can be within a half hour charge a vehicle from 0 to 80% battery life. So the DC fast chargers cost about, I think, $50,000 right now to install, and the level 2 can be $5,000 to $10,000. So they're much less expensive, but you don't get a fast charge. The one at Zero Park Street is a level 2 charger that was put in a few years ago. So you can see on here they recommend the make and model type to transition each vehicle to. We got Nissan Leafs, Chevy Bolts. There is a Ford Mustang Mach-E if anyone likes those. Yeah, you're right. So basically they take into account current costs, potential incentives, and what type of vehicle we could fit in our fleet. We'll go to the next. So they also provide the cost savings, TCO, that's total cost of ownership over 28 years. We could save about 1.86 million just in maintenance and fuel costs, basically. And you can see the metric tons of CO2 eliminated, 7590. It's hard to put that into perspective. I was trying to look for a good analogy, and they said that a telephone pole high, wide, and long, a cube, is 1 metric ton of CO2 that big. So 7,600 of those. Pretty big. If you want to go to the next slide, Cindy. So future considerations. Continue to refresh the fleet assessment report through August 2024. Implement replacements when appropriate. We can seek to install charging infrastructure. And rumor on the street is there's going to be incentive coming up in August from National Grid to provide the make ready. So basically to bring power to a site, they'll provide costs for that, which they did for the Zero Park Street a few years ago. And recent implementation by DPW, we've actually ordered one of the F-150 Lightning electric vehicles to replace the DPW admin vehicle. And we leveraged $7,500 in incentives from the state to be below our budget that we had. So that'll be our first one. We can charge that at our highway garage. We have a 240 volt charger, or we could take it down to Zero Park Street as we're kind of working on figuring out where we can charge vehicles in the future. I am scheduling a site assessment with Voltrek. They're the consultant who helped us design and install the Zero Park Street EV station, and I'm going to work with them to kind of just go over where we could put these electric vehicle charging stations at DPW, potentially police, fire. So those are kind of future implementation items. We'll go next. And that's it, your roadmap to fleet electrification. So exciting stuff, especially when gas prices are real high. So I still don't have an ETA on the F-150.
Okay.
Yeah, any questions?
So I got a question in the back. I just want to say this, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because we don't have an agenda, but I just want to say that I'm not against going electric. I am all for coming up with new ideas, but we're still using fossil fuels to create the electricity, and you still got to get the electric chargers on a infrastructure that's failing in this country. So I'm a little skeptical as how this is going to work. So that being said, Peter, you had a question?
Yeah, I just, Dan, you probably haven't seen it yet, but the Clean Energy Center just announced a round of grants for fleet electrification yesterday. So it's just hitting the street, so that may, augment your presentation of what they folks next time.
Okay.
Awesome. But also what I said, be prepared to answer that for people, because people will ask you that.
Okay.
Okay? But thank you very much. Oh, yes.
We also have Marty Kutri. I've been driving electric for 6 years, so I'm all for this. We have a resident in town, David Rowe, who is a senior manager of Fleet Solutions for ChargePoint.
Okay.
It could be something we call
all the time.
Awesome.
You know, I'm waiting for the transporter. I'm not gonna be happy until I get my transporter. I notice no one talks about working on that.
Okay, and then, you know, we do have a stuff
Can I ask
meeting.
a question, please?
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
So now that we've had this initial assessment looking at electrical, so my initial take is, you know, looking at probably the DCFC would be the better long-term investment for charging stations. But my bigger question, or two questions, is two-part. Some of the recommendations that they make here, are those adequate for particularly thinking like size and utility?
Yeah, some of them
what we're
may not.
using these vehicles for? Like I'm thinking plowing a street,
Right.
towing heavy trailers. So how does that parlay into like going electric in the future?
Right, that's a good question, and I don't quite have the answer yet. Some of
Okay.
them don't, you're right, probably don't fit, especially when we have, you know, diesel, heavy-duty trucks doing plowing. I don't know how well an electric vehicle is gonna do, so I'll have to work with vendors and such on how we go about that.
I was curious if that's why in like the light duty pickup, there's 13, but they only recommend replacing 9. So
Yeah.
is that, do you know why that?
Yeah, it could be due to the use. Some of them, they don't currently have an electric vehicle that's fitted to do that. It might have to be a diesel. I'd have to look closer. But hopefully as the technology grows, it fits. Yeah.
So the second part of the question, sitting on the capital planning committee, is, you know, if there are within this presentation, with this analysis, like low-hanging fruit that we can look to implement
Yeah.
in the near future, next year, the year after, et cetera, it's probably worth having a conversation from a capital perspective with what we can implement and kind of also a general discussion around what the town's vehicle needs are as a whole, with what we have right now in place and what we'll need as we go out in the future.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Great.
Anything else?
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Last item, I'll give a quick update on a few projects we have going on. Spectacle Pond Water Treatment Plant PFAS treatment system. So the operation began on June 24th. There's still some leftover punch item work going on. We got a new propane installed for emergency generator in mid-August, and there'll be a final change order at a later meeting once we cross all the T's and dot all the I's from all the work that was done. But we are up and operating at Spec Pond now. Wastewater treatment plant improvements. So that project is ongoing. We're still having supply issues, which everybody's dealing with nowadays. The VFDs for the project are taking a prolonged time to receive, but we are able to move forward with parts of the project, including the gravity belt thickener, which is the biggest component of the project because that's going to thicken our sludge, so then we don't have to take 8 or 9 loads a week off-site hauling and disposal. Maybe we'll be doing 4 or 5, half the amount. And with disposal, our transportation cost is really high right now. That'll be helpful to our budget. I'd hopefully by winter that would be online, hopefully even sooner, but the way things are going, it's hard to predict. The Ayer West Main Street infrastructure project, they've been continuing out there. They're on schedule. The water main has been installed. This is over by Burbeck Gate in Woojong. And water services are currently being connected. The drainage in the street is substantially installed, and sometime next month they're going to be getting the binder course down and start setting curb and working on sidewalks. So the project's moving along pretty
Excellent.
well. And those were the main projects I wanted to give you an update on. Okay. All right.
Okay.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Peter Lowen.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm joined by the chairman of the Devon's Enterprise Commission, William Marshall, and my environmental planner, Neil Angus. We sort of do this presentation as a tag team, so I hope you'll bear with us as we sort of walk our way through this. And I just wanted you to know, Chairman Livingston, that per your request, I reached out to Chairman Rivera of Mass Development, And actually, he's so eager to be here that he's on the screen twice over
That's
your
what I
shoulder.
thought a couple of times. I'm thinking, he's on there twice. No.
I beg your forgiveness. What I look like is less professional than what you see in the square.
And I just wanted to thank Chairman Rivera, who is actually on vacation with his family right now, and he's taking time out because he knows how important this issue is. So.
And it is very much appreciated that you've interrupted your vacation. I know what it feels like. I had to come here one time recovering from major surgery. It was not fun. So it's very much appreciated.
My duty. I appreciate you guys taking the time, Madam Chair.
Peter, it's been a long time since I've seen you in person.
It has.
You look
it has
taller
changed.
than you do on screen. We had a Zoom meeting earlier this afternoon for the Devon's meeting, and he looks this big. Actually, you always sit down, so I only get like the nose up. So.
Well, got to try and put my best foot forward, or face forward, as we say. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Marshall, could you introduce?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, town manager. Appreciate the opportunity to come before you this evening. My name is Bill Marshall. I'm chairman of the Devon's Enterprise Commission. The Devon's Enterprise Commission is the permitting authority for Devon's, and we're responsible for providing permits in accordance with the bylaws and zoning requirements of the Devon's reuse plan in a environmentally sustainable and economically viable manner. We have been very successful at Devon's over the last going on 30 years now, and over the last several years the activity at Devon's has increased exponentially, and as a result we have just recently discovered that we are fast approaching what's known as the commercial cap limitations of the reuse plan, which is currently 8.5 million square feet. We put on close to 2 million square feet in the last year, so this type of activity has resulted in our approaching this cap, and within the next 8 months to 12 months we will probably hit that cap. And in 2008, MEPA conducted a review and in effect eliminated that cap from a requirement for Devon's, but unfortunately the bylaws were not changed at that time. So tonight I have two members of the commission with me. I have Martin Putri, who is the representative from the town of Ayer on the commission, and serving the region is Commissioner Judge Robert Gardner, who's been a very strong advocate for the town of Ayer as well. And as you all met Peter Lowett, who is our director and land use administrator, and Neil Angus, who is our environmental planner. So those two gentlemen will be providing you with the information, and hopefully Mr. Rivera will provide you with Mass Development's take as well. Thank you.
First slide, please. Thank you. So this is, we use this slide to basically show the actual language in the Devon's bylaws. It said, maximum square foot of building at Devon's shall not exceed 8.5 million square feet. And if you're going to go above 7.7 million square feet, you have to get approval from MEPA. Next slide. So in 2008, Mass Development went to MEPA and got approval to exceed that 7.7 million square feet. In fact, MEPA said, that 8.5 million square feet, that's an arbitrary number, and, it should be removed as well. But no one changed the bylaws. So, and as you all probably know, it takes 3 to tango here in Devon's world. We need all 3 towns to cooperate and either hold a Tri-Town meeting, or there's another way, which was what was done for Bristol Myers Squibb. They were in the Harvard portion of Devon's, and they Mass Development and the legislative delegation went to the town of Harvard, and Harvard said, yeah, we're okay with raising the cap. And they went to the legislature, and the legislature changed the cap because what the bylaws were incorporated by legislative action when they approved Chapter 498 back in 1994. So the legislature is one of the paths to changing the bylaws. So next slide, please. So the MEPA Notice of Project Change still retains environmental performance criteria. So I'm going to just sort of walk you through some of those performance criteria so you get a sense of how well we're actually performing. So one of those is transportation. So Mass Development conducts 5-year traffic studies. The last one was done in 2021, and there was a COVID adjustment factor added to it.
I was going to say.
Yeah. Yeah, and the limit in the MEPA Notice of Project Change is 50,000 vehicles per day. We're at 20,500, so well below the factor. The next, please. So other factors are water and wastewater use. 3 million gallons per day of water use, 3 million gallons per day of wastewater withdrawal. These are the limits. Where are we at? Less than 1 million gallons for the water use, less than 1 million gallons for the water withdrawal. Wastewater generation was increased in the 2008 Notice of Project Change to 4.65 million gallons. Where are we at? 1.17 million gallons. The basic message here, next slide please, is we're like 50 to 75% below what the environmental metrics are. So we're really doing what I would consider a decent job. So Devon's is about 4,400 acres. The Notice of Project Change doesn't count the Army stuff on the main post, but we do. Acres of altered land, there's a limit of 2,900 acres. We're at 774. We've had the one that's going to be the most problematical for us is impervious area, but you know what? We're the regulators and we can control that. We can require porous pavement, we can require vegetated roofs, and we can keep underneath that cap of 984 acres, and that's something we will intend to do as we move forward. We've had very minimal impact on wetlands, and there's no impact on I think we may have altered like less than 100 square feet of wetlands in 30 years at Devon. So next, please. So again, 8.5 million square feet in the final environmental impact report. The 2008 Notice of Project Change eliminated that cap. In 2021, we were at 6.45 million. Today, we're at 7.44 million. And this month, not included in those totals, I have under review 683,000 square feet of additional development, which will put us to 8.3 million square feet probably by the end of August. So we're only counting things that we permit, not things that are proposed and haven't been come in for development permits. So that's a lot of development. And Janice, you correctly asked, what's the rush? I would say, that's the rush. Oh my gosh, I'm worried. And I hope to convey that message. So you may ask, why are we doing so well? And I'll turn it over to Neil to sort of talk through why we're underperforming or performing really well in terms of environmental metrics. Neil?
Thanks, Peter. Well, as both Peter and Bill mentioned, one of the reasons we're doing so well is that sustainable redevelopment mission, or that goal that was in the reuse plan, to follow sustainable redevelopment. We've really been a good early adopter of low impact development strategies. So, I mean, Peter mentioned green roofs and porous pavement. You know, we can start requiring those things. We're already requiring those things. We just can, you know, require them on a larger scale. So we've been early adopters of those approaches to development, which decreases impervious surface, reduces urban heat island impacts, water usage. We've got great landscaping requirements to minimize manicured lawn areas, reduce the use of potable water for irrigation. You know, hugely important now that we're in, you know, drought conditions, and we see these drought conditions back to back every year now. So, you know, those approaches, in addition to our transportation demand management strategies, where we have shuttle services, we work with businesses to reduce their parking requirements. All of these elements help reduce the traffic congestion in Devon's and the single occupancy vehicles. That's why we're at less than half of what the projected impacts of, you know, 50,000 trips per day were projected. We're nowhere near that, and we still have a lot of room to develop. One of the other things to point out is, you know, Devon's has been a champion for protecting open space. So we have permanently protected over 1,400 acres of the 4,400 acres. That's over 30% of the land area of Devon's, and that's permanently protected. Conservation restrictions deeded to open space agencies such as U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Trustees of reservations has a conservation restriction over Mirror Lake. All of those elements, you know, none of those are going to be impacted by any lifting of the cap. All that area is going to be permanently protected, and it is permanently protected.
And just to add a local touch to it, Devon's Enterprise Commission holds some conservation restrictions within the former Ayer boundaries, and we have enlisted the Ayer Conservation Commission as our backup deed restriction holder. So if at some point in the future, you know, Devon's goes away, then Ayer would hold the conservation restrictions there.
And, you know, in terms of the amount of development that's happened already, you know, we're approaching the 7.7 million square feet that Peter mentioned. All of that development, we've required developments not to just go in and clear cut the lands. We require them to preserve areas of trees and really integrate the development into the natural environment, not just go in and rip everything out. So that smart approach, or that, you know, approach creates compact, you know, development patterns. It's reusing a lot of the existing Army infrastructure. This is where we want development to happen. You know, to preserve green fields in other areas of the states, you know, including Ayer, including, you know, all the surrounding towns in the region. So it's a regional benefit. Next slide, please. And it's not just Chairman Marshall or, you know, Peter Lowett or myself, you know, saying, oh, we're doing this great job. We've done, you know, we've gone through third-party certification programs such as the STAR Community Rating System and the U.S. Green Building Council's lead for cities and communities. And we've received a third-party independent rating from those agencies on our sustainability initiatives and the way we have redeveloped Devon's. So from a STAR Community standpoint, we received a 4-star rating. The highest rating you can get is 5 stars. So we still have some work to do, but still a pretty good rating. I think we're one of 70 in the world that have this rating. So it's, you know, it's a pretty big deal. And it's, like I said, third-party verification that says, actually, you know, we are redeveloping and meeting our sustainable redevelopment mission. It's also giving us additional metrics to help us measure how we're achieving those goals, such as, you know, greenhouse gas emission regulations, more low-impact development techniques, green building techniques, all of those elements. We've also created the Devon's Eco-Efficiency Center, which basically takes a lot of the businesses on Devon's and works with them to bring them together to reduce their environmental impact, to, you know, improve operational efficiencies, and work together as a unit of businesses instead of individually in their silos. And they're partnering with businesses in Ayer and the surrounding towns as well too, so there's a regional benefit to that, in addition to all the other regional services that Devon's provides. So, you know, the redevelopment of Devens is not just a Devens-focused thing. It's a, you know, benefits for the entire region. Next slide, please. So through the FEIR, Peter listed all of those metrics that we're being held to. As Peter stated, we're well below all of those metrics, and this really helps, you know, further justify the, you know, the elimination of the square footage cap, because it really is an arbitrary number. Next slide, please. So, and I think Chairman Marshall and Peter already went through most of this. You know, in 2008, when this notice of project change went through, we were around 3.5 million square feet. Today, you know, we're up near 7.7 million square feet. We really did see a huge peak of development. Next slide. This is an aerial image of the main post of Devens. And the parcels you see highlighted in green and yellow or orange are you know, previously developed residential areas within Devens. They were all former Army barracks sites. You can see a lot of green there, though. That's part of the 1,400 acres of open space that we protected. Next slide. So in between 2020 and 2022, we permitted over 1.7 million square feet of development on those parcels that I outlined on the last slide. So Commonwealth Fusion Systems, 300,000 square feet. King Street Properties, almost 500,000, well, almost 1 million square feet actually total in their 2 parcels. And Watson Marlowe up at near the golf course, the former DeVeo Circle area, you know, 150,000 square feet. All of those developments came in through the pandemic, so we really pushed us up towards that cap very quickly, making us think, you know, we've got to do something about this sooner rather than later. Next slide, please.
And so our job basically is why we're here. We're sort of in the, I consider it the Chicken Little role. We're the regulators. You know, our job is to say, hey folks, look, we're getting close to the 8.5 million square feet. We got to do something. And you know, and why do we have to do it now? Well, there are huge risks for the communities. Salerno Circle is at risk. Shirley Village growth is at risk. The development of the airfield in Ayer at risk. Some properties sort of came in and, you know, and they said, well, you know, we're only going to build, you know, one of our buildings. We show that there's, you know, room for 3 more on our, you know, 40 acres. And that's shown on a master plan. There's about 1.28 million square feet of master plan growth, but we only are allowed to count what comes in for permits. So that 1.28 million square feet of people who assume they'll be able to build at risk. People like Bristol Myers Squibb, their next phase of development at risk. Commonwealth Fusion Systems, they've got a magnet factory, their big research building, and they've got room for a second magnet factory and an education center. A second magnet factory and education center at risk. You know, mass development has calculated that there's another couple of million square feet that could be built. That's the stuff that could go onto the North Post and Salerno Circle and the Shirley Village growth area, plus that's in addition to the 1.28 million there. All of that stuff at risk, and as I said today, we have in front of us right now an additional 653,000 square feet. Yikes, you know. Yes, we're worried. So, next slide, please. So, again, sort of third-party verification. What are the impacts of the development that we've got? Well, this is a 2020 study. 6,000 jobs created, 14,000 jobs throughout the Commonwealth that are related to development at Devens, $3.8 billion being contributed to the mass economy, annual payroll of $547 million, average annual wage of $90,000, 40% of Devens jobs are in manufacturing, and again, that's missing, you know, 1.7 million square feet that's been added in the last 2 years. Next, please. No worries. You've been doing a great job. Thank you. So, you know, what we're really asking is, what we would consider a simple administrative change, because MEPA removed the cap as being arbitrary in 2008. The bylaws should have been updated to be consistent with that decision. We plan on retaining all of the environmental metrics that we just went through. We can happy to live with all of them, because you know we think we can manage to those numbers and outperform them as we continue doing. And we commit to doing annual reporting on how we're doing against the metrics to the communities. And we will be happy to do that. You've got our commissioners here, and you know we'll be happy to come in and do annual reports in person, you know, in the future or on Zoom, however you'd like us to do so. Next. The other direction. Yeah, so basically what we're asking you to do is just send a signal to the legislative delegation that you would like them to consider taking action on this. You know, the current session ends in July, but if all of the communities are okay with it, they'll file a home rule legislation, and it can be done between now and December. But I think we're going to cross that threshold of 8.5 million between now and December. And I do not want to be the person who's going to be telling Bristol Myers Squibb that they cannot build their third phase of development when they've already invested over $2.5 to $3 billion in Devons. I don't want to be in that position. I don't think the communities want to be in that position. There are lots of people who live in Ayer and Harvard and Shirley who work at Devons, and you know, this is all about by right development, sending a message about surety of process, and knowing that the system's there so you can plan and make investments based on that. And here we are talking about all of this being put at risk due to you know, a failure to take more timely action. Now, you know, you look back at one of the slides, you saw that in 2016 we were at 4 million square feet, and we do an assessment every 5 years. I know that Harvard had asked for a parcel by parcel analysis. Well, we do that every 5 years. It's the Devon's 5-year development report that the DEC does, and it's on our website. And we go through every parcel and talk about what potential future growth is that we're aware of at that point in time. And you know, that's where some of those numbers, that additional 2 million square feet, comes from. And we're happy to provide that information, and I'm sure Chairman Rivera can, you know, instruct the mass development folks to continue to provide that type of information as requested by Harvard and the communities. But I think the ask needs to be specific. The language in what Harvard sent was pretty vague, and if they can, you know, refine that a little bit, I think mass development would be more than willing to try and answer their question. So I'm putting words in your mouth, Dan. I'm sorry. I think that's it. Is that the last slide? Oh, yeah. Just you know, we're trying to do the right thing here. We're a national and international example of how to sustainably redevelop a military base and do it the right way. We want to continue to do that, and we want to continue to support regional efforts such as we are doing with Dan on the West Main Street project. And going forward, you know, we've got a great working relationship with the town of Ayer, and we want to see that continue. So happy to answer y'all's questions.
So thank you very much. As I said earlier, it's nice to see you again. I saw you earlier this afternoon in our Devon's Jurisdiction Framework Committee. And as I stated there, and I appreciate again, Mr. Rivera, you being here. It's actually quite exciting that you were here tonight. I asked that you be here tonight because I'll be completely honest, and you can go watch the video from earlier. Mass Development has been radio silent, and the deck did some wonderful work, and I have to commend them. And I said this earlier, they kind of put their feet in cement, backing up their work, and they should, because they've done wonderful work. And they told us that Mass Development is behind it, but we've never heard from Mass Development, so we don't know. So tonight's even the first time we've ever heard your voice, and it's a very nice voice, I want to point out, because that's all I got is a still picture. And I also want you to please convey to your family, thank you very much for lending us you tonight.
Well,
yes.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I gotta tell you, I'm humbled and really thankful that you all are talking about this matter tonight, and I do apologize for not being there in person. But I do feel like this is my responsibility as we start the conversation with Devens. And so, here to answer any of the questions, I will say, just kind of as an intro, the deck is, at least from my point of view, I've only been here about a year and a half, the honest broker. They are the people that decide what we can do and can't do as far as development. And that Mass Development really takes their guidance on development from the bylaws. And I think we've had, a history of not being aligned with the towns on what they wanted to do. We've failed at town meetings a bunch of times on different things. And I think, it's important that the deck has seen this really as what we saw in the MEPA report, an administrative change. We did do the MEPA report. We at least got that far before I got here. So I think that has allowed us to really look at this with clear eyes. And even though we're a quasi, and the quasi-public side of it is the Commonwealth. MEPA is not. They're the really. I don't want to overstate it, but MEPA's not going to do things that we want just because we want. MEPA's going to make sure that things are being done in the appropriate manner. I think that the question before you is whether or not you think the DEC and MEPA together can continue to uphold the great work that they've done, and we will live by the growth of the DRES as we were told to do by the bylaw. But we really do support them. We think that as the honest brokers they are, that the DEC, and Neil and Pete and Neil and Peter have done a great job in keeping us in line. And so I stand here behind them in every way possible on this map.
And thank you very much. And as was pointed out tonight, the deck needs us, needs the town of Ayer, needs Harvard, needs Shirley, and by that same token, so does Mass Development. And we would like to get a relationship back with Mass Development. I'm speaking for the town of Ayer, but I have no doubt that Harvard and Shirley would also agree with me. So I would like to, right now, invite you to attend our next meeting, which is on August 16th. It's a Tuesday at 6 p.m. to come in person for a nice meet and greet. I'll make the coffee, because it's very important. We've met all the other heads of Mass Development before, and unfortunately, pandemic aside and everything, we have not had a chance to meet with you. So that would help develop that relationship, which in turn helps develop even the relationship with the DEC, who do a wonderful job. I enjoy meeting with these guys every month. It's nice to see Pete's whole face, not just the nose up. But
Madam Chair, I just want you to know, short of a force majeure, I will do all my best to be there in August to have a conversation with you about what all the matters that you would like in open session. I'd love to do that and meet you guys.
Okay, great. And if you can make it, we'll even put you in the beginning of the agenda.
You know what? I come from municipal government, so I appreciate these conversations. I'm glad to go whenever the agenda allows. You know, listening to DPW reminded me a bunch of stuff that I had been doing previous years, and so I have no problem going whenever you guys put me on the agenda.
Okay, great. Thank you. Scott, John, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just curiosity question. So you're looking for support to completely remove the cap from Devon as a whole. What is the potential total growth in square footage?
So, you know, the back of the envelope is 1.2 plus 2, so it's another 3.28 million additional to the 8.5, and that is 12 million square feet.
And that's the cap for all of Devon.
Yeah, that's basically what Mass Development estimates full build out might look like.
And again, that's an estimate. Back in 2007 or 2008, or actually 1993, when the original final environmental impact report was being finalized, you know, they thought the impacts of 8.5 million square feet would be these, you know, these metrics, 50,000 vehicle trips. You know, so this is all just guesstimates. It's really an arbitrary number. It's holding to real limits and metrics that you can measure impacts from. You know, whether you have 100,000 square feet of building that's heavy industrial or a light warehouse manufacturing, they give off totally different impacts from air emissions, water quality, wastewater, all those things. So those are the impacts we should be measuring, not these arbitrary numbers, you know, because it's again, it's an estimate, it's a rough guess, where those, you know, those metrics are actual numbers we can be held to.
And as development gets smarter, and buildings get smarter, and you know all those technologies. I mean, if you think about green, Little Leaf, I'm gonna call it Green Leaf. Little Leaf, their impact is so low because of the way they do their work. So something to know.
Yeah, I mean, all the housing on Devon's that's been developed since, you know, the base closed down, all the new housing, it's all net zero or energy positive homes. You know, these are smarter ways to develop, and you know, we've been fortunate to be able to, you know, push developers to build that way, and that's why these impacts are so low, so much lower than what was anticipated.
And just one of the North Post projects in Ayer that might be in jeopardy is Little Leaf was looking at putting a facility on the North Post to try and solve what they call the spinach problem. How can you grow spinach in a controlled environment and make sure that it's clean and healthy and no contaminants come into it? And that would, you know, their research facility would be, you know, on the North Post.
That sounded so funny. Spinach
The spinach problem. Well,
yeah, Robert.
Madam Chair, through you to Mr. Rivera, good evening. And first, Peter, as always, thank you, and to the deck, you know, for an excellent job. And if I may, through the chair, Mr. Rivera, just to Robert, the town manager, just to build upon the town of Ayer's concern and importance for there to be a true relationship between the towns and mass development. I think one of the fundamental concerns and I'm speaking for Ayer, but not just in Ayer, but in Harvard and Shirley, I also sit with Selectman Livingston on the Devon's Disposition Committee, which Mass Development walked away from, surprisingly to many of us, a couple of months ago. And numerous letters have been sent to Mass Development, as specifically from the Devon's Framework Committee, and we've heard nothing back but crickets. And just speaking as the town manager, you know, there's this urgency, and this isn't the deck, this is to Mass Development, and I appreciate that you're here. There's this urgency now to lift the cap and for the towns to act in a timely manner. But yet on the other side of the equation, on looking at the issues of disposition, Mass Development not only has not been at the table for several months, but we have no reason as to why. And I look forward to you coming here, and I hope you actually do come here on August 16th so we can talk about that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I think that's, Mr. Manager, I think, that's a really interesting conversation to have. And I want to just, because, the lives and fortune of your community and all the other communities are in, when we talk about these things, I don't want to be careless in these types of conversations. But I will say is, we have some work to do at Mass Development to ensure that we're focused on the right things in the DRES. There's a bridge falling down that has impacted the roads of some communities that we got to fix, that we got to get focused on. We got to build a public safety building. We got to ensure that the money for the education keeps going. All these things are very important for us to do, and so to some extent, we want to continue to focus on those things. Not that the jurisdiction conversation is less important. It's just that internally, as I said in my statement, we want to focus on those things that were core to our missions by the bylaw, and that continue to be great partners in all the issues that are individually important to the communities, but also together important to the community. Sometimes in having those conversations about how you can be a good partner, it's just tough to talk out in public about.
Through the chair, if I may, and I appreciate that, Mr. Rivera, but if there is perhaps the most fundamentally important question facing not only Mass Development, the DEC, Ayer, Shirley, Harvard, and the entire region, is the future of this success and the future of the issue of disposition. And we put together a framework committee that through the pandemic has worked in the true spirit of partnership through very difficult times. And the agency that you're head of has pulled away from the table, which was a surprise to all of us. And as the clock continues to tick, it's been over 2 months, nobody has responded to any of us as to why. And I understand I deal with broken bridges and roads and so forth, but here is an opportunity that a framework was beginning to be set, and we don't, as Selectman Livingston said in her remarks, not only do we not know where you are, but we haven't heard from you until tonight.
I know, listen, I can understand your frustration, but I think that we have responded with a very specific statement, and I say it like that because I don't want to be cavalier about this conversation. And I think the bylaws were very clear that in 2030 we're supposed to do a thing. We will meet those things in 2033. That's going to be the decision. That is in the statement that we provided, and I know that is what I'm hearing is that that's not enough of an explanation, and I'm hoping for some great. Yeah.
Mr. Rivera, the reason why the letter that you sent out is not a good enough explanation, though it does cover the facts. The fact that you have received requests from individuals, from communities, and you just filed them in cabinet number 13, kind of comes across like you're not a very good neighbor. I'm sure you can see how this, looks. So here's what my take is. I get the feeling that somehow somebody got offended and the decision was made. And in case you haven't figured it out yet, I'm a straight shooter. I right between the eyes. That's the way I am. That's the way I was raised. Devon's has been a part of my life my entire life. So this is all very important. By the way, all the green space does look beautiful. But when we're being ignored, when all it takes is 5 minutes to respond to almost a text, just to say, look, I'm sorry that you're upset about this and I will get back to you. Or something, or to at least acknowledge that you've received the letter. That's what has upset so many people. And it's not just the people who have been serving on that committee, it's the people that live in Devens, that live in Shirley, that live in Harvard, and live in Ayer. And therein lies the problem. So I really do hope getting a massive headache. I really do hope that you will be able to come see us in August. I look forward to meeting you face to face. It would be a pleasure, and us becoming better neighbors. With that said, gentlemen, I'm really getting a massive headache right now. So if you have any questions, or what are we gonna do next? Oh my God, that hurts.
Quick follow-up question on the build-up for the 12 million that you're calculating. Is that taking into account any impact on housing? And I'm asking the question, I know there's a cap and we're close to it, but there's also been some discussions around, this is from other elected officials, looking towards Devens to kind of supplement some of the potential need for housing within the region.
That's a great idea, but we are not touching that with this. This is a commercial development cap. That's all
Just
we're
wanted to
focused
clarify.
on.
Thank you.
Those were 2 questions as well.
Sorry.
No, I took yours earlier.
So for this evening, I guess the question is, are you just looking for a vote of support to lifting
Yes.
the cap from the board?
Can I just point out one other thing though? In the copy that we have in our packet,
Yeah,
there's a typo.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. That's my only comment.
And what we heard from Senator Eldridge and Representative Sena is that if you do send them that motion of support, they will move it forward once they, if all 3 towns sign on, they will move it forward and remove the cap.
And have you gone to Shirley and
We
Harvard?
have gone to Shirley. We were there in June, the end of the month, and they signed on to sending a message to their delegation.
And Harvard?
Harvard, we're going next Tuesday evening.
Okay, thank you. That's my last question. Thank you.
Okay, I have no further comments.
I'll make a motion to support lifting the commercial cap in Devens as requested.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye. Congratulations. Mr. Rivera, again, thank you very much for attending tonight.
Madam Chair, we'll see each other in August.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
all.
you, guys.
Thanks. Good to see you, Robert.
Peter, good job.
Robert.
Thank you.
Robert, go ahead.
Yeah. Members of the board, in the interest of time, I'll get right to the town manager's report. And if there is an objection from the board, I'd take up, if I could take up the appointments first, as I know some of them have been patiently waiting here this evening. As I put in your packet, the first set of appointments are for the Ayer Cemetery Commission. Per the board, we followed a process in which we advertised the positions on all of the town's various websites, social media, posted on the posting board with a deadline for folks to submit interest to the town. And as discussed, those candidates would be presented before the board to interview or ask any questions for those individuals. By the deadline, we received 4 applicants for the Cemetery Commission. Of those 4, 1 individual withdrew their application over the weekend. The remaining 3 for the 3 seats are, in no particular order, Mr. Sam Goodwin, Miss Betsy Diskin, and Miss Susan Tordella Williams. Miss Diskin extended her apologies that she planned to be here this evening, and due to an unforeseen matter, she is out of town. Would be happy to meet with the board in August if it is the will of the board. I know that Mr. Goodwin is present to appear before the board. And though I've reached out to Ms. Tordella Williams, I did not hear back regarding for tonight. So at this point, the process was followed. There are 3 candidates that have expressed interest. One of them is present. One of them had an emergency conflict for this evening, and the other individual I've not heard back from. So I don't know what the will of the board is.
Questions?
I mean, from my perspective, I think if we have 3 candidates who have submitted their letter of intent, I understand it would be better if they were here. I appreciate Sam coming down tonight. I'm okay appointing all 3. With the breakdown between the 3-year, 2-year, and 1-year term, I believe, if I remember correctly, someone had requested specifically the 1-year term?
I think Susan said the 1 or 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Through the chair, I believe Susan Tordella Williams had indicated a preference for the 1 year. The other 2 individuals did not give a preference. So there's 3, 2, and 1.
Thank you.
I have no questions. You agree with that?
I have no other questions.
Okay.
So do we need to do each one individual because it's a 1 year?
I think we can, as long as we phrase it, so we're assigning the 3-year to an individual and the
Correct.
2-year to an individual. Or actually, Ms. Chair, if I may, since we do have 1 candidate, should we ask that individual if they have a preference on the 2-year or the
Go right
I
ahead.
would think so.
3-year? Okay. Thank you.
So I'll make a motion to appoint the following 3 people to the Town of Ayer Cemetery Commission. Sam Goodwin for a term of 3 years, Ms. Betsy Diskin for a term of 2 years, and Ms. Susan Tordella Williams for a term of 1 year.
I will second.
All those in favor?
No,
Aye.
And the chair says aye. Congratulations to all the appointees.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Dan.
Madam Chair, the next set of appointments is for the Cable Contract Committee. This committee, as appointed by the Select Board, is charged with renegotiating the contract with the cable contract with Comcast. It's traditionally a 5-member board, 3-year terms. The individuals for your consideration this evening, and some of them are here, Mr. Scott Curlin, who is the Executive Director of APAC, Ms. Janet Provodakis, the Chair of the APAC Board, Ms. Julie Murray, also on APAC, Police Chief Brian Gill, and the 5th spot is a Select Board representative for your determination. Once appointed, the committee will be charged with negotiating with Comcast, and there's a specific process that includes a detailed public ascertainment process to get public input and feedback from Ayer residents and businesses on this process. The current contract expires on March 31st of 2023. Their job will be to negotiate terms of a successor agreement that are favorable to the town. Ultimately, they will appear back before the Select Board with the final contract for your review and approval. So for tonight, recommending those 4 appointments, and then whatever the will of the board is for the 5th representative. The committee will also be supported administratively by my office, also legal support from town council, as well as the potential for a professional consultant on telecommunication contracts.
When does this committee usually meet? Like what time frame?
It's-
Morning, day, afternoon?
I anticipate the committee will have its first meeting, will probably be meeting in the evening.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's governed under the open meeting law, the public meetings. There are some that would be potentially executive session under the appropriate exemption, as it's the town's negotiation strategy.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I have no problem being
one I could go, I honestly don't need another thing on my plate. I could step up, but if you're willing to, I'll absolutely let you go for it.
I don't know.
feel the same
Well,
way as Scott.
now-
I would do it, but
now
if
you're too
you-
gleeful.
If you're
Now I
dying
like
to
it.
do it.
So,
Question, what are the terms for the committee? Is it just a 1-year appointment?
It's historically been a 3-year,
3
granted the
year. For
process will,
everyone?
everyone, yeah, that would be all 3-year. Granted the process, there is a delay, it might be a little more than a year, but they are 3 years.
Okay.
So you're just looking for a motion to
Yep.
approve these nominations and
Mhm.
include board member Kingston?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that the select board appoint the members, the 5-member cable contract committee, might have that, as presented tonight, with the addition of board member Livingston as the select board representation.
I'll second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair says aye.
Thank you.
You can tell it's getting late, we're
Yes.
getting tired.
In the interest of time, Madam Chair, if there isn't objection from the board on the continued discussion for the goals and objectives, and you have the memo from last time and I have the input, if there isn't objection from the board, if we table that or to discuss in August, and maybe a homework assignment for all of us is to further look at that, put together, the major goals, and as you had mentioned, a checklist and so forth. In the interest of time, unless the board would like to.
I leave it to these two, but I personally would appreciate it because my head just near
Yeah.
exploded.
Yeah. Okay.
We can table that.
Okay.
And I just have one under the administrative update briefly, in the interest of time, and of course, if there's any administrative items, I did want to briefly talk about, we often refer to it as the cannon, but it's a howitzer in front of Town Hall. And I wanted to update the board, since I've been here over 12 years and it predates my arrival, there have been periodic discussions and concerns. As you know, the howitzer that's out in front of Town Hall was a gift from the Cody family, and there's a granite, Cindy, can we just go to the pictures first? I'm sorry, just for everybody's benefit. So historically, it's a 1943.
Actually, Cindy, if you could go to the more
That's an old
updated.
picture.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
you got it.
Right there.
It'll show what currently it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
So there's this very nice marker that is on the back of the Town Hall property. And as you see, it says, "This field piece was given by the Cody family in memory of Sergeant Cody." Yet the field piece is in the front of the Town Hall. And
The post office didn't like being named it.
and many often ask on occasion, gee, where's the artillery piece? Definitely the school kids. I know that veterans groups have asked about it, are concerned about it, would like it to obviously be together in a prominent spot. Also, Mr. Ernie Girton has reminded me throughout the pandemic and so forth the importance of moving forward with this. So that piece, and then if you go to the picture of the howitzer, that we'll come back to the historic picture in just a moment. There's the howitzer in the front.
Could you go to my images, Cindy? It'll be a little closer and they'll see it a little better.
So,
Might be able
in
to-
the interest of time, what I wanted to propose on the update for tonight, it is imperative, I think, that the town do 3 things initially. One is that we move the granite marker to be with the howitzer as the intent was. And we can accomplish that by the end of the summer, to move that to the appropriate place. The second thing is that the howitzer, historically in the photos, was placed on an appropriate platform, a granite platform. Here, and I'm not casting any aspersions, I wasn't here, so forth, it's just sitting on the ground, if you will, which is a preservation concern. It should be on the appropriate base. That base can also be developed by the end of the summer. The third piece, and I'm going to turn it over to Alan in just a second, the third piece is the cannon itself, I can't see, I keep calling it the howitzer, needs some restoration work, and specifically, and we'll have some better photos of it, around the tires, there's decay and so forth. The question is, we're in the process of getting some analysis on that. The question is, on the historic renovation piece, what do we need to do to restore it? Now, could that restoration be done on-site? Probably not. It might have to go to be properly taken care of, but we could still get the base and the monument in the proper location and restore it correctly. And based on what those quotes are, I have had an initial conversation at my request with the chair of the CPC committee at community preservation, and we are prepared to go to community preservation if the funding to make an application under the historic preservation category to do the restoration work. But what we would like to do by the end of the summer is get all of the elements together, move the granite marker that we showed in the proper location and get the base in place, and then see where we are on the restoration. Did I miss anything on the key elements?
No.
I think you took away his fire.
No. Alan.
He looks upset.
He is my fire.
No. Alan, and to turn it over to Alan, has had communication with the family, the Cody family, which is supportive of that approach. And Alan, why don't you talk just briefly about the restoration and the history you found out?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, if you could do the that first image.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Staff Sergeant Leon A. Cody was born in 1919. He was airborne World War II. On his 25th birthday, his first day in combat, he was severely wounded, was in France, anti-tank guy, the toughest of tough stuff, fighting tanks with those. Transferred to England, died 2 months later, 1943. Cody family, I want to thank Mr. Frank Cody. He lives here on Pleasant Street. He's 82 years old. Frank, I had an amazing conversation with, gave me the entire family history. History of the Cody family, 4 brothers, all served in the military, family homestead, 11 Forest Street. An amazing story. In the mid-'80s, Buzzy Cody, this is who actually brought that howitzer field piece from Devon's, brought it here in 1985, the ceremony. Was placed in the front, and you saw that historic photo from the other thing. During the complete renovation of this town hall building in 2020, they picked the piece up. They moved it as they were doing all the work around with the monument, set it back there, and as Robert said, for some reason we're not entirely sure, the cannon is brought up, but the monument remains. They're separated. So for almost 20 years they've been separated. Time to bring it up. If you go to the next image, Cindy. Here's the issue. This, by the way, is a 1943 M3 105 millimeter howitzer. It's an amazing piece. It's a split tail howitzer. It was manufactured at the Rock Island Arsenal, Rock Island, Illinois, Davenport, Iowa, right there on the Mississippi River. And unfortunately, because it was set on the ground in this way and left, the wheels are literally rotting off it. It's gone. It has to be restored. The rest of the howitzer is actually in amazing good shape. The other mistake that was made, they painted it black with paint. This is why the moisture has gotten caught. It's deteriorating. It was not done right. It shouldn't be black. It should be brought back to its original olive drab. Can you go to the next image quickly?
Olive drab.
All right, that didn't take. There's the mark insignia on it. Okay, fascinating just looking at it, and you see it weighs 950. It's almost half a ton. Okay, can you go to the next one? This is the monument again in the back. And is there one more picture of it from the back side? I think I might have. Oh, by the way, there it is. in action in World War, and that image is actually from 1943 in France. There it is. As the town manager said, we're ready to restore it and bring it up. I've been looking at it out there. My recommendation would be you do not want to do a rectangular concrete pad. If you look at the grounds out there, everything is very organic in shape. This was done masterfully out here with the round, with the monuments. I would recommend us actually placing a round pad for the gun, so then we can have fun and move it in different directions. When people say, I don't want it facing, I want it facing. Spin it around.
We're in a fight with Harvard.
Generation
Point
after
it over
generation,
there.
instead of on this rectangular pad.
Mad at the train, pointed straight.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you put it on a which actually just architecture and design will be more, it'll really work nicely. The monument, I look at it, it's a very rough, odd piece of granite stone. It's not even squared. If you look down on it, it's tapered, I'm not sure. We may want to consider, the plaque is the most precious thing. You may want to consider that, I don't know if that granite block has significance, if that block came from somewhere and it is significant unto itself. And I'd like to, we need to research and find out. So if not, I would say we may want to consider mounting it on a different form, so we need to find out about that. I think it should be restored completely.
I agree.
And in my over-the-top fashion, hang on, I think it should be restored so that it's operable again.
I don't think so.
Wait, let me. Okay.
No. She still said no. I said no.
Reason I only say this
God,
is.
I can just see you getting all excited wanting to demonstrate it. Right?
No, Alex, not allowed.
Yeah. Exactly, but can't you picture it? Oh,
I've already been there, scared.
Oh, yeah, no.
I
No. You
I
take
say
out the
that-
firing pin and you throw it away. You're not doing it.
No, not for firing in that way. For blanks, so that on ceremonies, wouldn't it be
No,
on the one
no,
you could actually
no.
hear the roar of
Even
its voice?
blanks hurt. Oh my God.
Okay.
Brandon Lee's son.
So-
Bruce
There it
Lee's
is.
son. Blanks.
But restoring
no.
it should be very good.
Yeah, restoring. Oh my God.
But restored, all the way back to how it originally, worked as proper thing. And this can either be done by a professional restoration, and we're looking at that, who'll be there. Or I've done some research. Some of these fantastic cannons have been restored by vocational technical school students because all the disciplines are involved in it. With metal, with auto work, and it could
That
be
would actually
a
be-
very interesting that the
That would actually be
students
very
there
cool.
would remember the rest of their lives and come back and say, we were.
Because then you could add an extra little plaque restored by the students.
I don't know if they have the capacity, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
It has been done this way. Actually, in Methuen, they restored this, and they took it to the Greater Lawrence Vocational Technical, and the students restored. It's world class.
Yep.
So there are different ways. So this is great, magnificent, and let's get the howitzer
I think we're all
restored.
for
And as the plaque does say, it was put there by the Cody family. That was not placed there just for Staff Sergeant Leon Cody, but it says on the monument, this is here in memory of all air service people that serve. And also, we need to have a monument in this town to Fort Devens and everything Devens did mean to this town and how it shaped the town. We have no monument in this town anywhere acknowledging Devens. And that really, is it.
Okay.
Anyway, so we're ready to restore it. and I
Do you
think it's
need
a
us to
good
vote
project.
on it, or just to tell you to go forth?
Well, we wanted to, obviously, as a courtesy to the select board, make sure you were aware and give you an update. We don't need, respectfully, any vote tonight, so just to recircle back what the plan is, and we have many folks working on this. The first step for the end of the summer, because many folks have asked about this, it's important to many veterans groups and so forth. They want the two pieces to be back together. So we will make sure that is moved and everything is back together. I do agree with Al as far as the base, the movement of the monument and the base and getting all of that by the end of the summer is doable, and we have the resources to do that. Alan is in the process, along with Chuck and others, to get the appropriate restoration advice. Obviously, the howitzer will be out there on but what do we need to do to preserve it moving forward? If that requires additional funds, which we anticipate it will, as I mentioned, the CPC is aware and is willing to entertain an application in time for the fall town meeting for the historic restoration funds. And just to manage expectations, at some point, the howitzer may have to temporarily go off-site to be restored. But
Very seldom can you restore it on site.
Right.
Oh, I
Because it
agree.
has to be
Yeah.
disassembled completely.
Exactly.
And we will continue to keep the board updated, but where we want to begin to correct this, we wanted you to be aware by the end of the summer.
And to work closely with the Cody family
Yeah.
through the entire process. You know,
Sounds
of
excellent.
course, yes.
Sounds excellent. And then we can invite them at the unveiling when it gets done.
Yes, and we would like to, as Alan
Yeah.
mentioned, with the select board, the Legion, other folks have the appropriate sort of rededication.
Would it be
or-
wonderful if that could happen for Memorial Day, next year?
Oh, Memorial Day, I just want to remind people, Memorial Day is run by the American Legion Air Post 139, not the town.
That's right, quite right.
Okay.
So,
Okay, all right.
a great heritage project, and it's again an honor and privilege to work on
Yeah.
things like this.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you, members of the board. That, for tonight, in the interest of time, concludes my report. We'll talk about the goals at the August 16th meeting, and I thank you for your time and consideration.
All right, next up, any new business select board member questions?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Okay, you're like, no.
No.
All right, how about meeting minutes from June 21st, 2022? I had no issues.
I have no issues. I'll make a motion to approve meeting minutes for June 21st, 2022 as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye, meeting minutes are approved. And if there's nothing else,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye, good night, everyone.